Everyone, and welcome to episode 69 of the NTS Podcast. From the title, you're probably seeing that we've got Enclave's Phil coming on. You might be wondering where he is. He's just going to come on a little bit later. We're going to talk about a couple of things first. Mainly the UKLC Final, which just happened a couple of days ago as well. So we're going to do a bit of a recap on that and give some of our thoughts. And then, bring Phil in a little while to talk about all things Enclave. Obviously joined, though, by Tom at least. Tom, how's it going?
Yeah, no, it's going well. It's Viva la insert team that won UKLC. Yeah, I guess everybody knows Viva la London.
Yeah. My boys, my local team, I suppose. They're more London United. I'll go for this one since they won. But yeah, obviously that UKLC final then between M&M and London, and even just before the game started, we were just talking for a second off air about M&M looking like the favourites. Obviously, they won the regular season and it looked good since they dropped down. Obviously, they relegated from the NLC recently. But I suppose in the end, yeah, it wasn't to be. It was maybe a bit of an upset, but then on the day, it didn't really seem like it. It was like, I don't know, I felt London didn't look like it didn't look like David versus Goliath, let's put it that way.
So I think the thing is, and this is like indicative of what regular season is, and this is not giving any credit away to M&M for getting first in the regular season. Obviously, it's very good to do so and to get that, but when it comes into like best of three, I think that's when you kind of find out who the best of the best teams are. Because if you did go off kind of regular season form, yes, London kind of looked a little bit better in like the second half of the regular season than what they did in like the first half, in my opinion. But it wasn't like, it wasn't convincing, and you probably would have had to have thought, that Envision obviously was like another team which would have been potentially doing well if you went off form. They won like the last 5 games, whereas like Resolve Academy lost their last 4. So it's like you went off form, you'd probably say, yeah, M&M probably the strongest team at that point. But I always had a feeling that this London side was like the strongest on paper side in the UKLC, and I feel like that did show in the best of 5 in the end. I think it was and both in the best of 3 as well. Prior to that, I just felt that they were just a better side, and it's more like credit to M&M for actually getting to that point. But you kind of saw that London were just, on paper the better side, on paper were rightfully the favourites and won the entire thing in the end. Finished second in regular season, but won what mattered. And let's be honest though, both these teams now in Telia Masters, I mean, it's hard to kind of judge right now. I haven't really done too much research on what the other kind of Telia teams are, but I am slightly optimistic about this London esports side, and I do hope that they actually, do quite a lot as well. I look at Akers like Bealey, especially. I feel like Bealey's continually doing well at this level to a point where I'm like, well, come on, like, when is he actually going to be able to have that opportunity again to step up in, like, say, the NLC or something? Because he was the one left behind, essentially, unfortunately. And now he's gone on and won it again in the UKLC. So you kind of hope for some of these players that they start to, get these chances. No Name as well is another player I think has just can keep getting better and better and better. But I do have to shout out Aragon as well for M&M, because I do feel like Aragon's been one of those players who I think a lot of people have had not bad opinions on, because from what I've always heard, he's always been like a nice individual, like a nice player and stuff like that, but never kind of reached the potential of what I think a lot of people were kind of wanting him to be. And, to get second in the UKLC, to finish first in the regular season, I think he's actually finally got a squad which I think actually works with him quite well as well. And it seems that both of these sides actually are in unison, and I quite like that.
I think they're looking at Telia Masters as well. I think the groups came out a couple of days ago. I think for London as well, getting the first seed, if you like, from the UK in the end has massively helped them as well. Basically from Avoid and Absolved. So M&M are in Group B with Absolved, and obviously I suppose last split as well, Absolved came in looking really good on paper, but that's it. Like this split they look even stronger than they did last time.
Yeah,
and they've it's shown in the Danish league as well. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough one, I think, for M&M to maybe get through. I think Niriki, I always hear people talk about them looking really good as well. Also
Yeah,
in
Nariki are always the side which I feel like are always there and thereabouts, aren't they?
yeah.
Like there are a couple of teams that I kind of know, but like the main two are, like I knew about Galaxy Racer like before because I was like Galaxy Racer is quite a big organization in like the Middle East, so I kind of knew about those. But yeah, Absolved especially, I think, given off the fact of they had what is, let's be honest, a very disappointed Telemasters. They were expecting to not just even get into relegation, but to potentially win those relegations and go up, and they didn't. Does, from what I've heard, do have a better squad, but I would also say I actually do look at this London squad and is it a better squad than what they had, I think, in the last split? And I do kind of, obviously they haven't got Den Voxnay, but I don't think that Mankey's been like a complete downgrade from that as well. And I do think that Aka's No Name Bielik, that kind of trifecta, that British trifecta, is actually working really well.
Hmm. Definitely. I think yeah, like especially like you said before with No Name as well. Seeing his, I'm pretty sure he's still like 17 or 18 or something as well. Like he's a split or two ago he was in the UKEL pretty much. So I think he's one that's more or less like a matter of time until he's in the NLC. To be fair, or at least until a team takes a punt on him in there. But it's funny, like you say with Beanie on the opposite end of it. Like Beanie's been around the UK League forever, and I think it might, was it Frumi we had on or something? I think it might have been Frumi, but they kind of described it as like when you get Beanie, like you've got one of the best mids in the UK at that point. It's like if you're going for like guaranteed success more or less. And yeah, it definitely showed in that final. I think it was the third game when he was playing LeBlanc and he just literally was like popping people left and right. It was a joke because that was the game after Eminem had won. And it kind of looked like he just had enough of that. He said, "Now let's sort this series out properly." And yeah, just took that game over. I think that was the game where him and Anonim together seemed to be like sort of roaming around, making picks everywhere.
Well, and I think this is where it kind of worked a little bit because I felt like we don't really get to talk about so much UKLC because I know that obviously we sometimes the guests we have on are NLC and then we do also talk a lot more now about the UKEL. But hello?
Yeah, I'm with you, Tom. Can you hear me?
Okay. Sorry, you frozen on my
Oh,
screen, so I
sorry.
didn't know. Like, but with the kind of like Bealey has always been one of those people where, and I think definitely this split has been emphasized, where he's not been like the standout player, but not because he's not good enough, but because he's facilitating basically Mankey and No Name. Like those are the two players who have been carrying. Not carrying, but are carrying, sorry, London. And Bailey's done a great job at being consistent and actually still getting those opportunities in when he needs to and to carry when he needs to. But really, it has been on No Name and Mankey, and I think that's really good to see. I think a lot of people now play through, especially like a jungler, but to see someone now in this meta play through like for me an ADC is quite nice to see as well.
Yeah, I think with Bealey as well, given that he's like played in so many splits, so many years, it's probably the ideal person to match with like quite a young jungler like No Name because it means that he's probably played in all sorts of metas, played in all sorts of styles. So it seems like ideal for a jungler to kind of learn their trade along with someone like that.
But then also finally to go back to like Eminem as well, like he didn't have, I would say, like the standout game, which you would have hoped. But I think Jopper's been absolutely great this split, and I think Jopper is looking very good. Obviously, even in the victory, he played the Aphelios. So what can you really do when you're playing with the Aphelios? You're doing obviously what you need to do, but you're not gonna have this like massive standout performance and stuff like that. But I'm really impressed with Jopper, and I think he's another one where I do think that maybe a couple of NLC teams might be looking at him in the future. You never know, though. Eminem and London could be in the NLC next split. We never know. So
we'll see.
We can only hope.
Yeah. And then, talking of the NLC, just to touch on that a little bit as well, before we bring Phil in. Obviously, the first day of playoffs was yesterday. Started off with like a bit of a tamer series with I say tamer, like what was meant to be a quite close series anyway with Nordvind and Singularity. Obviously, Singularity ended up winning that 2-1. But then obviously the big one was the one after that, Riddle against XL, which I suppose on form, Riddle kind of were the favourites. They've been playing better
It's
the last
weird,
couple of
isn't it?
weeks.
Because I think it's hard to. Quickly talking about the Singularity Nordvin game though. Like obviously, I think that was a game which I think a lot of people expected Singularity to win. Especially with kind of how Nordvin had, despite having like this extra year, had still not kind of like gelled as much I think as what they would have hoped. But it worked with Singularity. I think they've really like got well together, and at the end of the day, the British singularity still goes through. But yeah, like you said, Riddle is one of those where it's kind of like, if you go off anything, in terms of stats, in terms of actually statistical data, Riddle are the favorites in this game. But you could never count BTXL out. And at the end of the day, like, this was, for me, this was like it's a new patch. So Dan and Denick have now been working with BTXL on this new patch, preparing for this new patch. And if I'm being honest, like, what I found very impressive is Riddle are actually a very attacking team. They've been a very attacking team basically most of the split, and that's where they've kind of thrived. It was slow, it was methodical. They basically knew what BTXL were going to play. They basically matched it, scaled it, and won. And I thought that was unbelievable. And that really, for me, highlighted things more. It wasn't just that they beat BTXL playing this high aggressive style. They beat them playing a slow, methodical style, which is what BTXL wanted to do. And I thought that was the most impressive thing.
Exactly. And when it's like that, it kind of shows you it's not like they've like cheesed it or anything. They've not done a couple, like, just focused a lane early on, got someone fed and won it off that. They've literally, like you say, it's like a game plan, and especially that kind of thing, you can't get through a best of series doing that anyway. So they've literally gone in and actually
in the first
played as a
game,
better team.
like, and in the first game as well, it was like they played basically the same style in that exact game, which really in all three games really, which really actually surprised me. But even in the first game, yes, BT ended up winning that, and eventually it was just BT got the team fights, got the objectives, and won. And it was a little bit of like, outskill and out macroing essentially, which won it for BTXL. But that was even close in the first game, to the point where I was like, okay, no, this isn't going to be like, this isn't a BTXL which I was expecting to, be the team which finished second in EU Masters, and now he's not in there. And I do have to shout out Hit Brain for saying that it's been years since the team had been out. I have to give credit. It feels like years that it's not been an academy team, but Riddle did do it like a year ago.
Yeah, almost to the day, wasn't it? And then obviously the funny, well, the funny tier list that we had, I suppose, worth mentioning as well. Obviously I had to go back and double check it, and that's why I just screenshotted it and put it on Twitter. But we didn't have a Riddle quite where they finished when we did our tier list.
I had them B. I did have them B. Just saying. And I actually looked back and I was like, to be fair, I did say, I don't know why I think this team's going to work. I just think it does. That was my reasoning. But then I did also say, Gooby and PlayStation, I really like that duo. And let's be honest, Gooby has been a standout in that team.
Yeah,
in a
like
team
there's like a Cogmore game, wasn't it? And it was like, every one he gets to like 10% health and then gets a bit back, and then someone jumps on him again and he just like would not die. It was just crazy.
There was so much pressure on Gooby and PlayStation as well to carry those games, and they did it. They executed it perfectly to a point, perfectly in terms of they won the game anyway. There were still mistakes, but very interesting, very, very interesting to see. Potentially maybe not even another academy team making it out, depending on how it goes on Thursday. So.
Yeah, be pretty mental. And then does that mean it's Singularity Riddle in the next round then? Am I right in thinking
so? It's Singularity Riddle in the lower bracket.
Yeah.
So basically, because they finished in the lower bracket, it's single elimination for them. Where Tricked and Fnatic have basically one chance. So they're in the upper bracket. If Tricked or Fnatic lose, whoever loses that one, they face the winner of Singularity Riddle. So they still get another chance to work their way back up, which is like the benefit of finishing obviously top.
But yeah, that one Singularity Riddle then, I think that'd be interesting, because like you say, Riddle a lot of the time going through kind of like, or especially that series, like going late game and just letting Gooby just DPS. I feel like with Singularity, they've obviously got, I think their solo laners, especially in the mid lane, is obviously their main strength. So it could be interesting to see how it kind
it's
of
one of those
up.
where I kind of don't want either team to lose, because I really like both teams. Like, I think both teams have I mean, Singularity, I think, performed the way that I think a lot of people expected, and that's always good to see. But Riddle obviously did overperform. Like, even though we had them, like, I had them a little bit higher. Like, I said that, they're probably going to be smooth sailing, and that's it. I didn't expect them to be, beating BTXL, and regularly competing in what was a quite a tough group with Fnatic Rising as well. And at one point, I believe being at top of that group. I might be wrong there, but they were still competing anyway. So but then I love Tricked as well. So if only we have 3 seeds,
Yeah,
if only we have 3
exactly.
seeds.
Next time, Tom. Next time. All right, I think that's a good point for us to take a little pause. Then we'll bring Phil in. So yeah, stick around. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, we are back, and we are back with Enclave Philip, aka Phil, as we just discussed last week. And actually, Phil, I don't know if you would remember that. Maybe I'm putting you on the spot here. This is actually the second time we've spoken, and I don't know if that laugh means you remember or not. I actually did an interview with you. You were my first, kind of the first involvement I had with the UK scene when I was just running like my own blog to try and
Oh no,
practice doing
yes,
articles.
I do. Yeah, I do. Yes, it was for an article. And you sent. I think we just sat down and you asked me a few questions and I ran through them and then you typed up.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I wonder if you remember or not. And actually, I went back to check it because I didn't want to repeat anything, and ask you the same questions twice and wind you up. But yeah, we kind of got you on to obviously have a chat about Enclave would be the kind of the main topic, obviously being the owner. And yeah, I feel like we can maybe talk a bit about how everything started with Enclave. Obviously, that's something you've probably discussed before. In any case, so we don't have to maybe go through that too much. But then, at least since Tom and I have been involved in the scene, which is basically a few years now at this point. Enclave
feel
is
old
obviously...
now. It's been like 3 years. I used to write interviews with players as well.
Yeah. And it's been, well, Enclave is always like one of those teams that has always been around, and even at the time that we got involved, had been quite a long-standing team.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, before we kind of get into that and what that's been like those last few years, why don't you just maybe start by talking a bit about just how the org got started in general for anyone that might not know.
Yeah, I can kind of blast through it because just to bore people with extreme details. But essentially, it started in 2015, so it has been around for a very long time. It started in 2015 simply because my friend who I played Dota with a lot, said to me, "Hey, someone's one of our team members hasn't turned up. Can you stand in for them in a competitive game on Face It?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I just ever since then, I kind of got hooked, and I had a discussion with that player, my friend, and said, "Hey, let's build an org together." And then I just after, we were kind of casual, I would say. We were just having fun. We were just playing like the Dota 2 circuits on Face It. Not really, I wouldn't say at that time we were an org. We were just a team, or like a company. We were just a team
Like a
playing.
clan
Yeah. I think that would be the better way to describe it, as like a clan. But I chose the name Enclave because I loved playing as the Enclave in Fallout 3. However, it's actually bad to admit that now because technically the Enclave are a fascist organization in Fallout 3. Just a disclaimer, we don't share the same views, but it's just I like the name, so we just named ourselves that, and it kind of developed, and we decided to really go into being an organization simply because we had a conversation with a guy called Wingo Chan from TCA Esports at the time, who Deadly's been a part of, Raisins has been a part of, some other well-known UK League of Legends players. And just after having a conversation with them, it just seemed really dodgy. Essentially, they wanted us to pay them to be a part of their teams, and we were like, "This makes no sense." And after those experiences, we decided, "Hey, let's just form our own company." Now, I did form it with Matt. Matt, after a while, kind of faded away. You didn't want to continue doing it. He sadly passed away now, but I always remember him for the fact that he helped me get into it. But that's how it essentially started. We had an interaction with an org that we felt, "Oh no, this is not how I would do it," and say, "Oh, okay, let's actually show them how to do it then," and focus and try to focus at least on the player experience, which I have to admit we've not always upheld. But that's what we essentially were founded on.
So that's how Enclave's lasted all these years then. That's how you fund it, really. The players they pay to play for them.
Oh, no.
You didn't carry over that model, no?
Imagine that.
That's it. It's a membership program.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be honest, like I remember when I used to play Sunday League and I had to pay
Subs.
I had to pay subs to be a part of a team. Do you know what? I did see another organization who tried to do that model and they didn't. I know they're still around. I'm not going to call them out, but I know they dropped that pretty fast. I think one of the comments was like, "Oh, why does the player have to buy their own jersey?" And it's like, "Oh, well, when I played football, I had to buy my own jersey," and I was just like, "Oh, yikes!"
The grassroots way. essentially.
Yeah, there was yeah. So that's pretty much how we survived. I've just been
So,
taking people's paychecks.
it's crazy. And these days, like, this is getting off topic. Like, I used to play football when I was like a teenager, and the subs were like £1-2. I joined one of my mates' teams a couple of years ago. It was £5 for subs, and on the match day as well. Imagine that, £10 a week paying to play football. It's crazy.
I think it was like £80 when I joined.
Jesus.
Or £80.
Oh yeah,
like when
I the FA signing up fee and everything.
Oh yeah, I
Bloody
used to
joke.
play with a player called Bo. What's his name? Flo Bojaj, who's actually now playing in the German league, and I knew what's his name? I was Chuba Akpom, who went to my school, who's now in Middlesbrough, but he was in the Arsenal academy system.
Yeah.
So I played with quite a decent set of players, but I still had to pay to actually play to be a part of that team, even though is what it is.
Yeah, kind of going on from that start then. You mentioned that it was like mainly in Dota that you started. So how did it? Was it like a conscious transition to League, or was it just like you picked up a team and then it was sustainable in the end, so you kind of stuck around? Or?
The reason why we went into League of Legends was because at the time of us kind of the Dota 2 scene at that time, and I actually wrote an article about this once and kind of got all of the UK Dota scene to hate me. But essentially saying that the UK Dota scene like didn't have good enough infrastructure. The player base was extremely toxic. Like the old guard were kind of blocking new people coming in. Like I remember being a part of this WhatsApp group with all the Dota players, and they would just be so abusive to new people coming into the scene. So I had a look at League of Legends, and I also realized with League of Legends that that it had a better infrastructure. You know, ESL was a part of the community. There was actually a league. There was a prize pool. You know, finalists would go to Insomnia, and even in them days as well. Like after we got started up, they even had UK Masters. So you had ESL and UK Masters running at the same time, which was fantastic. So we just saw that as a better infrastructure and a better way for us to expand our brand. So we got involved. We started dabbling our feet in there, and then I actually had a conversation with one of our Dota players at the time. Put us in contact with Frum, and me and Frum had a talk, and I think we were kind of talking about how if we were to get into League of Legends, he would help us, and that's how me and Richard ended up. It always feels weird to call him Richard. Me and Frum like kind of becoming friends and getting to know each other, and then he obviously played on our first iteration of the roster. Then he moved to manager, and kind of the rest is history. But it was simply
a terrible player, and so you thought, we're gonna get him something else. And
he would say that he would say that he was a good player. He was also incredibly toxic. A lot of people don't realize. No, I'm joking for him. But he had a passion for it. But I think he realized that like where Enclave was going, we needed better players, and he kind of sacrificed himself to get better players in the position, and just saw that he could start working with Enclave in a manager position. And again, like I said, the kind of rest is history.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of you mentioned there about like the ESL running things kind of back in those early days. I think that time that we spoke before, it was literally just it would have been just as ESL
just before LVP kind of came in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like 2-3 seasons before LVP came in. So it was a good, like, I think actually 2 years. It was a good 2 years because when I remember, I think the last season of ESL was when we had got to the studio and we did we traveled around the UK. So we did a boot camp where and it was a absolute terrible boot camp, and the players who were part of that, Kerberos, Paris, Shogun, and all of those will tell you how bad it was. But I have such fond memories of it, and I think they do too. Kerberos always tells me off because I stole a bottle of ketchup from Nando's, and like his reaction when I stole it, he was like, "Phil, you can't do that." Like I think the last season of ESL was when we did that kind of in studio, and that was fantastic. But that was then when LVP took over.
Yeah, and I remember yeah, when we did that interview at the time, I think you mentioned that maybe ESL would kind of like almost like they'd taken it as far as they could. Like it was maybe I don't know, maybe like their own kind of budgeting they were allowed or something. Like basically the staff were doing the best they could, but it kind of needed maybe like a next step. What were
Yeah,
kind of the main
like
differences you noticed at least when it did move over?
well, to kind of touch upon what you just said there about ESL at the time, the people that were in charge were doing a phenomenal. We're doing a fantastic job. I'll say that because I can't say the other word. But they were doing a fantastic job. I think they were limited by the Berlin office because obviously at that time they had a UK office, then a Berlin office. They even had a French office as well, but they've now all gotten rid of that and kind of regressed back to Berlin. But they were kind of just handicapped essentially. But when LVP came in, and I guess your question was like, what were the main differences? LVP, it was the vision, I would say. Like I think ESL lacked for ESL it was a product that they held and that they were just running the product because Riot hadn't actually invested in the scene.
Yeah.
Right, they hadn't really been paying attention. They kind of just left ESL to do it. Whereas like when LVP came in, Sergey, who was the head of the UK branch at the time and higher up in LVP, had a vision that that he wanted to create the UKLC into and I remember having this conversation with him at Insomnia. He wanted to take this up to a level where it would rival potentially it'd rival this what they were doing in the Spanish scene. You know, they saw sponsorship opportunities 3 times that they were getting in the Spanish scene, and then even potentially the LCS, they or LEC, and they genuinely had that view that this could be a product that could rival. So they had a vision, and they really were passionate about that vision. And also Riot had come in and actually, wanted to really help. But one thing I would say is that at the time, Riot kind of blamed ESL for what had previously been going on, and I think that was really wrong of them to do so. I'm not going to call out the individual who did do that, but it was a kind of a kick in the teeth, I would say, for people who were working at ESL because they had no support from Riot. Whereas then when LVP came in, because Riot then saw the opportunity, I think, and this is just conjecture, it's like they saw the opportunity to really kind of push the UK scene into a product because LVP were investing so much money that they were like, oh yeah, we're now here, we're going to save the day. And that didn't really, it was just kind of, all right, yeah. And what we found is, now they've merged us with the Nordic League, you can kind of see where that ended up. But I would say they just had a bigger vision and they really did want to take this to the next level.
I think it's very interesting as well because I do think that, and it must have played a part in the fact that when LVP came in, the reason why I think they did get quite a lot of more support is because you probably would expect at that point that's when Riot was thinking about franchising with the LEC. And that's probably when they were thinking, okay, we're going to do these European regional leagues and kind of have that. So that's why I think a lot more of Riot's attention kind of did come in, especially for the first year with LVP.
Well, because of franchising, all LEC teams were required to at least have one academy in their home country. So with the franchising and then like kind of forming it kind of came together where they would have Fnatic and XL in the same league. So that there's 2 academy teams and then 6 teams. And to be honest, I think that did actually mismatch with what LVP's vision was, because I remember at the time Sergey saying to me that having academies in a league kind of devalues the league, because it says essentially that LEC and this league are not on the same level, because this is a feeder, right? It's an academy, and I didn't think at the time LVP really saw it as that. I genuinely think that they wanted to take this onto the next level and be its own kind of product within itself that is very separate from all of the other different ecosystems. But I think, yeah, it's just overall like I was really enthusiastic at the time, and I was really happy at the time that they came in, but yeah, things didn't really work out.
Was there...
And let's be honest, I mean, LVP, Obviously, I think they did 2 years, I think it was, weren't it?
Yeah.
Because it was 2018, 2019. And they love a good tournament. So they did the Forge of Champions, didn't they, in 2018, which is like this different,
Mm,
a bit like what the Prime League kind of does. It wasn't
yeah.
it, I believe, like tournaments in different kind of types of tournaments. And then they did obviously the UKLC kind of going in with this massive FA Cup style weekly tournament format. How was it like for you to kind of realize, not really with the Forge of Champions, because I feel like that was a lot of
That
UK
was
organizations were used to that, but with the UKLC.
yeah, like so FOC was more of a kind of I think they didn't have the product ready in time, so they needed something to fill the gap, and that's when they came up with FOC, which was great. We got third place or fourth place. I think our team went out to Barcelona. That was actually when we won the split. We won the actual regular split, and then went to finals and actually lost our first match, I think, versus Misfits. But yeah, I think then they brought in the UKLC, and the UKLC, like the idea of the UKLC, they wanted a different format. They wanted a different tournament that was kind of unique in its own, and that's how they came up with this tower format. And I mean, I think you're gonna probably need 2 or 3 more podcasts to go over that thing.
It gets
But
brought
they
up
had
every week.
they had the right intentions, all right. But I mean, it's funny when in a scenario where we were literally playing like Fnatic, XL, and M like every single week, and we were sitting there like, this is taking, ha ha ha. That scenario you said that would never happen because the odds, what's that? Murphy's Law. Anything bad that can happen will happen. It happened.
They didn't expect Diablos to do good, I think, wasn't it? Because I think did Diablos win the first split? I think it was.
They won a regular season, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think Diablos they had the Fiorion team, and they invested quite heavily into that, and it didn't do too well. And then towards the end of the split they changed. Oh no, this was actually
No,
that was
one that was like Kerberos, Monkeys, that kind of one.
yeah, and they had they changed the jungler at the end, which was interesting that they were able to change their players when it said they changed 2 players in the rule set. It only said 1, and there's just a lot of bullshittery that you can go into there that I won't comment on. But yeah, the fact that they were able to change 2 players and not 1, that angered us obviously, because we were like, this is a joke. But it is what happened. But UKLC, like how they at least set up the whole entire league, like they wanted to do they wanted to do a media day, and they invested a lot into those media days were class. They filmed content. They also were really open to kind of like what UKEL is doing with you guys, allowing this podcast on the show. Like they were really trying to incentivize teams to produce their own content so that it could be shown on stream. Like the idea was fantastic. I think the only thing that I would have done to tweak it is work with to try and make it more of a physical thing. And I think they did have that, right? They wanted each team to have like, and I remember talking to Nick about this at the time, who was the product manager. Like, I think in the next, probably their 5-year plan was within 5 years, get it to a point where we would have our own offices and we would have our own physical locations. Like they really did have a great vision for the UKLC. It just because I think I think it was the fact that they LVP were going into a funding round or were getting investment. They couldn't, and obviously UKLC at that time wasn't profitable. They couldn't have something on their books which was losing money, especially in an investment round. But don't quote me on that. But I mean, it would make sense, and I completely understand it.
I think little things as well, like I remember, and obviously I don't want to. Dreamhack is obviously a massive organization, a massive tournament organizer. Obviously, also basically it's merged with ESL now anyway, so it's all that one entity at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't expect, obviously, unfortunately for the NLC, that to be like their major priority. Where with LVP, it was a little bit more of a priority kind of for them alongside the Spanish league as well. But just little things I think as like, having a team of the split and stuff like that, it doesn't really happen. anymore, or people getting votes for even getting a team of the split and stuff like that. I think the engagement with LVP was actually really good. I just think the execution of it was a bit poor at the end of the day. But now we've got kind of like the NLC which is coming through. I guess the one positive thing that has come out of the NLC is, for me, I do feel like we've got better development systems now through the UKLC and through UKEL. While obviously all these talents aren't making it to the NLC, it's mainly Nordic dominant at this point. Like we are still seeing a lot more UK talent, I feel like, actually work their way up into those leagues. I look at like Dragdar kind of being like one, and there's a few others now, like the result
Soft.
support. I can't remember. Soft as well.
Soft came through it, Nolte came through come through kind of the breeding grounds that they did, like, or a lot of, and I mean, like, this is the thing, right, is that like when it was back in the day in ESL, there were a few players that you would just like recycle. And I would say that we have got more talent now. Like the talent seems to be growing, the talent pool. I mean, even this is, I've been out of it a year, and I'm sure that we'll get onto that later in the podcast. But in regards to kind of the talent that I'm seeing crop up, it's fresh every single season. There's someone new. Even when we signed Infor this season, I didn't know who Infor was, and then we've seen some real flashes of brilliance this season, and he's just getting into it. So the talent system is definitely better. But at the end of the day, like UKLC and LVP were trying to address that. They were getting involved. I think actually was the UKEL actually involved in the promotion and relegation, because they had universities, didn't they? The university league, Newell fed into it. And they had a bunch of different feeder tournaments, so they were quite.
As well,
was in it as well.
Yeah, they were trying to kind of, and they were trying to make connections between these different branches. So for me, it's like they were trying to do this, and and when it comes down to the execution part, I think they were doing fine. Like honestly, the incentive program was great. Like we were actually, it was incentivizing us to create content. When we actually made content, they worked with us on that. One of the things I've previously criticized Dreamhack about was the fact that, and again, I can get onto this later, but we spent a lot of money and we went to XL or Twickenham Stadium to film a bunch of content and to take player shots and stuff like that for the Dreamhack stream, and it never even happened. So we had basically wasted a lot of money for nothing, and that for me personally was really it was so annoying, because we were like, we're trying to now work on this with you to try and get the UKLC back to its status that it was under LVP, but it's become very apparent that NLC is the main product. But at the same time, Dreamhack is still maintaining an incentive program. No other league I can really think of has that. So I guess teething issues that hurt us in the initial stages of Dreamhack setting up, but I think they're working on it, and they do want to support UKLC.
I think as well, like, I mean, there's only so much kind of leeway you can give kind of an organization, but they've also come in when there has been like a lot kind of to do with like the pandemic, essentially. There's no kind of way around it. So with content, it must be hard to film content and have all these plans, which it did look like they did have with like doing like interviews and stuff like that. And now hopefully as things kind of start getting back together, Dreamhack kind of looks at this and actually tries to then enhance it even more, because surely they must look at like the likes of like the LFL and be like, why can't we do something like that? Maybe to not the level in terms of like the audience size, but at least in like the production size as well, to boost that audience as well.
I mean, it comes down to the fact that they've got to set up their main product right now, and that's NLC, and like that, it's improving, and I think viewership is actually growing as well. But at the end of the day, like, I imagine that's not commercially successful yet. So they're they're kind of incentivized to make sure that is viable, because they're pumping the most money into it, and that makes complete sense. But you then have to look at a UKLC org and say, what, because I've seen a lot of people be like, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that, like we're really trying to like grow the scene. And I've been there, I've done that. We're at a stage now though, as an organization, that we're trying to what's the point of doing those media days when we can't get content on stream. What's the point of really making a go for it when we're hampered by the promotion system, right? Because I've said this before on other podcasts that the promotion and relegation system is there to make sure that the organizations who are in the NLC or even in the UKLC stay where they are, because they want consistent brands in those products. Because if you keep chopping and changing, there's no real storylines developing. It's the main reason why they do franchising as well, because you don't have that risk of people falling out, and you can create those storylines. But yeah, that's a whole other topic.
So, with regards to kind of like this move to the NLC, I'm guessing that Enclave were one of the teams which had applied to kind of join the NLC right at the beginning, and I can see right. So, what was kind of the, before we talk about kind of the result of what happened, what was the process like for you guys in terms of actually applying to be in the trying to go into the NLC?
All right, let me try and find a word, the most diplomatic word that I can think of. Could have been better. So just to give some context of like how running up to this, because I gave this in previous podcasts, and I think it's important to kind of show where we were as an organization. Previously, we were working with MSI, we were working with Western Digital, we were working with BrainLab. We had a lot of sponsors at that time, and we were actually they weren't like sort of the deals you see where you get a percentage of a sale or whatever. They were flat fee monthly fees, and we were making money off that, and we were converting that into media days. I think like the content that I think it's now been removed from our YouTube, but at the time we were pumping a lot of money into custom content for our sponsors and just for us as well. Like I remember we did bloody YSAC Elite did like ASMR with MSI products, and and we hired out studios, and we did all these different things. So we had a lot of sponsorship. Me and Aaron had just because Aaron originally joined as like kind of a content person, but he's now the kind of co-owner of Enclave. And we had been building out our business plan, figuring out what we needed to do. So we were just about to get investment. I had we were talking with Belong and 1U about potentially working with them and putting Enclave into a physical location, which is what I wanted in the meeting with Riot before the NLC was announced. I said to them, you need to do physical locations, and like you can work with Belong on this, because it would incentivize Belong to get you like different teams inside their different arenas. You could give each different team like an arena each, and they would then have a physical location that they can play from. And then you could do additional content, and you can actually grow that base. Because one of the things that esports kind of suffers from is that the fans can't really go and interact with them. They want to go, talk to them after the matches, celebrate with them, and kind of just get a local community thing. And I thought also like because we wanted to be based in London, you could get all of the different kind of university societies to come down to that location as well and enjoy UK League of Legends. They obviously didn't do that. So I thought, you know what, whatever, let's do it ourselves. So we were in conversation with Belong and NLC, and we brought USA, we brought a bunch of other players down to Belong, and in there, I think it's it's in Oxford Street. I can't remember, but the one that basically has it has a room where it's sectioned off from everywhere else. It's soundproof, so you can't hear anyone outside. Essentially a boot camp. And we wanted to do it in there, but I was also in conversations with 1U about using one of their locations, and they had given us the go-ahead to actually use one of their locations, have a physical space. So it was a great offer for sponsors as well. So we had a really good business plan. We had really good sponsorship relations. And then, but the only problem is that in the previous season we hadn't had a good result, which, by the way, was like our worst result in 5 years. So let's just put that into context before I say what I'm about to say. And then the process happened. We're coming up to the application process. We submitted all the documentation. Barrage and the Monster got announced as it, and I think because also at the time then COVID hit. So it then hurt a lot of our plans. Like when you fell through
Mm-hmm.
the investment, then because I wanted to invest sponsorships and stuff like that. At the time, I was just like, when I got that was kind of the final nail in the coffin for me. And I was like, I need a break because I've been doing this for like 5 years, non-stop, and I've now gone mental boom. But the thing that I would always say is that they did not talk to anyone. They didn't have the conversations about the plans. That's one thing LVP did. In the application, they then had a conversation with you, and anything that had happened in the past as well about like financial problems or like any drama that come up, they walked you through that. They were open with you about it, and that's what Nick. I respect Nick so much for that, to being having that open dialogue. Dreamhack didn't do that. Dreamhack saw the stars with Munster. Barrage obviously had done really well the previous split, when actually, and this is no disrespect to Barrage, but when you look at the results, they had continuously come at the lower end of the table, whilst we were, we won FOC. Previous to that, we were fourth. We went to EU Masters twice. We had one bad season, and that's one of the things that they disqualified us on. Even though we had this amazing business plan. Yeah, like and they even admitted to itself that they didn't, they should have had conversations with people. So I think that's the big thing for me, is like the fact that they didn't question Munster about the previous accusations that they had is always going to be a grind. Is always, if I think on it too much, I'll probably just quit Enclave, honestly, because it does grind my gears.
Mm-hmm.
I think as well, yeah. I think that thing about what you said is, I didn't know that they'd not had like conversations with people and stuff like that. Like, because at the end of the day, like it kind of makes a little bit more sense why Munster feeling really Munster really it was feeling with the
It was feeling
wolves in sheep's clothing, I think it is, or something like that. So it's because it's like, maybe if they did ask these questions and kind of did a little bit more research, there would have been a little bit more scrutiny probably maybe put onto that. But then maybe they just thought because it was Munster and they maybe needed an Irish organisation, unfortunately. They wanted to kind of be a little bit more like diverse with that sense, that's why it maybe went in. Turned out it was the wrong choice, let's be honest. It all in the end, it did turn out to be pretty bad.
Yeah, I think what they struggled with, and this is where I'll come in and defend them a little bit as well. So I'll bash them and then defend them. Is that they were coming into they didn't know the UK scene. Like they just did not know the UK scene. Like they were thrown this. To my knowledge, they were thrown this. Like LVP dropped out, Riot panicked, and they had to find someone. They found Dreamhack, who stepped in, and they didn't have a kind of pulse on the UK scene. They didn't understand, like, as you've seen with the UKEL, and I think this is what they've done really great, is because they've got someone in the form of Alex who actually understands and has the connections to understand what's going on in the UK community. And if they had Alex in that situation, not to speak from him, but I'm sure he would know some of the stuff that they had heard previously about Phelan beforehand, and would have been like, you need to question them about this, because these are actually quite serious allegations. So it was interesting. It was interesting, but I think ultimately they were thrown into this, and a lot of the mistakes that were made were, I just don't think you could really blame them. They're just mistakes that happen, but nonetheless, Enclave was essentially shoved out of a great opportunity that I feel that we could have taken amazing advantage of, for someone who essentially lied, and that's what and committed, to my knowledge, fraud.
Yeah, and even after that, somehow looked like they might be playing in your league with you after as well, and once Munster got kicked out. But yeah, thankfully that didn't happen. But you said, like, once that happened, it was maybe like a bit of a turning point for yourself to maybe take a bit of a step back. And that was one thing I wanted to talk about today as well, like what kind of how you've transitioned, because I remember again going back to that interview that I did with you ages ago, and I asked you like what your day-to-day looked like, and this is how fresh to UK League of Legends I was. I asked you what your 9 to 5 looked like as a org owner, and I was surprised when you said that you had an actual proper job, and then this was just your thing on the side. Yeah, it shows how naive I was back then. But I remember you basically saying like, you finished your day job and then just all your time basically is spent on the org. And obviously, like you said, doing that for 5 years probably is a bit draining. So, yeah, why don't you maybe just talk us through what kind of how you've sort of adapted to that basically then at this point.
Yeah, I can kind of give you like an overview of what I was previously doing, and then where I'm at now. Yeah, I mean, to say that I finished my 9 to 5 and then moved on to Enclave would be yeah, I wish that was the case. It wasn't. I would work incredibly hard at my job for in very burst periods, so that most of my time could then be spent on my computer at work doing Enclave stuff. And then I spent my breaks on conversations with people, having phone calls with sponsors and stuff like that, to try and further develop it. And then when I got home, I kind of was like, yeah, okay, this is just a continuous until I went to bed. And I did that, continuously for 5 years. And in terms of how I adapted to that, like I would say it's more about your personality. Because I actually had this conversation. I was talking to someone the other day who just got into the industry and was asking me like, oh, how do you stay motivated? And I think it comes down to your characteristics and who you are as a person and what your temperament is. I'm just a very industrious person. Like this week I'm on vacation from my full-time role at Elohel as the business director. And I feel like crap just sitting here being like, I was so excited to do this today because I was like, yeah, I'm actually doing something. I'm actually doing something. So I think if you're quite an industrious person and you're quite, you love managing things, you love building things, it kind of fits you, right, to do this. But it wasn't, you can't sustain that for such a long time. What you're eventually do, and I said this to this person the other day, is that you will work for like 5 years and then you will hate your job. Like you will work for a certain amount of time like that, and then you will just hate what you're doing. And that's what I got to with Enclave, is that I put personal relationships back on in the back burner. I was in a serious relationship with someone for 6 years, and I broke up with them because they didn't support what I was trying to do with Enclave. When I got into my current relationship, I even said to her like, Enclave comes first. And I look back at that now and I think, how fucked up is that I said that to someone that I now like, think if I didn't have in my life, I'd quit Enclave for them now. But I think
You get into that mentality though, don't you? I think it's
yeah.
like one track mind kind of thing. It's like I need to just excel at this kind of one thing.
Yeah, it becomes extremely toxic, and that's what it did. But I think it's because every single like esports is all about. And when you're running an org, it's always that carrot, to somebody dangling a carrot somewhere, and you think that you're just about to do it, and then it doesn't. And I was talking to, I think ultimately, again, I'm not going to speak for Jeff from Barrage, but I think this is something he probably run into a lot as well, and that's why he decided to kind of say, this is the best time for me to get out, is because he was constantly chasing that carrot, and then he just realized it's not coming. So I worked for like 5 years, and then like that, and pretty much having no life. My university, I passed, but I didn't get I didn't achieve what I wanted to do. I then joined a full-time job. Not in, went to university to do history and politics, and then ended up in the sales industry. And I was like, the hell, like, how did this happen? It was because I wanted to get experience to sell to sponsors, like for Enclave. So it become an addiction, I would say. And then as soon as Wanyu deal went through, we didn't get into NLC. Like investment collapsed. All of our sponsorship stuff collapsed. I broke up with my girlfriend, and I just that's when I just lost it. And I was just like, I need to take a break, and that's how I transitioned into where I am now, which I can shut up and not talk about, or if you want me to just jump into that, because I know I talk quite a lot.
No, jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, like when after break, I was like, I'm gonna take a 6-month break. Like I need to basically sort myself out, because I think before that time, I'm gonna call it a breakdown, because that's what it was. I think before my breakdown, like I was a very different person to who I am today. And I think there's things about me that have gotten better, and there's things about me that have gotten worse. So for example, I find it very hard now to keep up motivation. and that's an issue I'm trying to work through, which I previously loved about myself, that I would just continue going. But I would say now I prioritize like having time by myself. Like I will no longer work weekends. If somebody messaged me on the weekend, it's become a joke within the company I'm at, that like I just won't touch weekends, because that's my time. I need that rest. I need that time with my dog. I need that time with my girlfriend. So. But I essentially said that I was going to take a 6-month break, and it's just that break has continued, and I've left it to essentially, like, as a company. I think most people will see this as well. It's the company's been on a bit of a or Enclave as a brand has been on a hiatus. We've done the bare minimum. To be honest with you, Adrian has been running the League of Legends side, and that's why we made him a director, so that he had full kind of discretion and decision making over that, because I was like, I would get too involved previously. I would help find the players, like then negotiate with the players and all that. So I gave him that chance to do it, and that's what he's been doing. Aaron's been kind of working with Hudson, who's our general manager, to kind of work on social media and that. But as a company, we're not really looking to expand. We're not really looking to I would say, do much than what we're currently doing, simply because we're trying to figure out, okay, what are the next steps, because it can't continue like this. It can't continue in this format of us paying inflated prices, and that's what they are. Like, with no disrespect to any of the players that are currently within the scene, when you have 5 followers and you're demanding £500 a month to represent, it's like, what am I actually really getting from you? Like, what am I? And it sucks to kind of look at people that way, and that's what I mean. Like, I wanted it to be all about the players, and now I'm looking at players this way. So it is like a financial a financial hole. And
The unfortunate thing is as well is that, like, unless you're gonna get a team which is gonna kind of get promoted into kind of NLC, and everything like that, like it's hard then to kind of judge value in sense of a player as well, because it's like, what am I paying, like you said, that amount for, if you've only got like 0 followers? Yeah, you may be a great player, but are you going to be great enough to win telemasters for us so we get through into the NLC? Probably not.
Well, the reason why you pay players to be I think it's well established now that most fans follow players rather than they do organizations at this current kind of ecosystem, except if you're a big one like FaZe or 100 Thieves, those sorts of brands. But in regards to where we are now, I would just say that for me, it's a case of I'm trying to find that drive again for Enclave, because it hasn't been there. I've lost it, and it's really sad to say, but like, I can't. I've also got to this point where I just can't watch. I can't watch Enclave Live anymore. Like, I generally can't, because after we failed to get into the NLC, I thought, F this, we're going to go ham. And I gave Adrian the budget to do that. But obviously that didn't work out, which shows you kind of how difficult it actually is. And after that, just the constant disappointment just broke me, I would say. And I generally just can't watch the games anymore. I can't bring myself to do it. So we're just at a stage now where we need to figure out what are the next steps for Enclave as a brand, like where we go from this. And a lot, somebody, Swifty, just said it in the chat, like where I just want to work in esports full time, and I share that. Like, I wanted to work in esports full time, and now I do. I'm the business director at EHE, which is a production company for or a kind of an esports turnkey service provider for companies like Blizzard, Razer, and the Concord University, and a bunch of other clients. So I'm working in that full time. I'm in the industry that I want to. I've used Enclave wasn't. I'm not going to call it a stepping stone, but it helped me get there. So it's all about figuring out what are the next steps. And I think just to end on this before I keep ranting, sorry, to where we are as a company, the nice thing is that me and Aaron are in very, very good positions. I'm a business director at as I said, an esports company. I also run our creator. So we run a creator agency, and we work with sponsors all the time. for our creators. And Aaron is the commercial director at a company called Mind Future, which does the exact same thing. So we are talking to sponsors all the time. We are talking to investors all the time. We are talking to the companies we want to be in discussion with and we want to be working with. And we've kind of now realized how you monetize esports, because a lot of people don't really know how to. A lot of the organizations in UKLC don't know how to. Whereas I think me and Aaron have a really good idea. So I'm actually meeting Adrian and Aaron this weekend in London, and we're going to go over this and kind of figure out what are the next steps for Enclave. But I think where I'm at right now is just trying to where is that motivation? Can I bring myself to watch the bloody games? And that. So it's the decision for me personally whether or not this makes sense. But I think we're at a stage where we're make or break. Either we say this is achieved what it's going to achieve, or we say I think there's other places we could take this.
Mm-hmm. So then I suppose that makes sense. I was going to ask if there's any thought to maybe just sell the spot, but then I suppose that's the kind of thing you would discuss then. So I guess the thought process is just like you said, maybe just exist for now until you either get that motivation back or you don't, and then at that point you can make a proper decision on it, I suppose. I
think it comes with we're waiting for the opportunity. I think Eminem did this and Cal did this. I think with Daniel. And again, I'm not trying not to speak for these people. I'm just using my understanding them and kind of the scenario is that when they set up DLC, which is their kind of creative company, when they set up DLC, they were doing amazing there. Cal went and worked for Level 99, and at the time you could see a change in the approach that Eminem had to kind of doing their team, and it went very low key for a while. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we are as a company, is and as a brand, we need to wait for the opportunity, because as I've said previously, what's the point of me spending 10K, dropping 10K, and mm-hmm. And to be honest, to make that, look at Resolve and what they tried and how much they spent on their roster. It's probably bloody expensive what they spent on trying to get into the NLC. And as they found out, it's bloody hard. And you're putting that money in. And I'm not going to try to say it's a waste, because at the end of the day, it's an opportunity, it's a risk. That's what we all take. But what's the point when the system is so rigged? I might as well just sit on my ass and wait for them to actually to figure this and sort this out. So that I can, and then I'll say, okay, no, this is the opportunity. But what is the point when the system is so rigged?
What do you think makes it so hard for teams to relegate then?
The promotion relegation tournaments. It's the biggest load of crap I've ever heard in my entire life. So you look at the ESL, not the gaming ESL, but the football ESL that was nearly formed. Why did people hate that? Because it basically said that the top teams controlled everything, and that there was no potential for some little team, to take from Wrexham, because he supports Wrexham. There's no potential for Wrexham or Ryan Reynolds and those people to invest in those companies when you can't get to the top. And it's the exact same thing with the promotion relegation system. Oh, you win the UKLC? Oh, that's great. Doesn't really mean anything, because now you have to go up against the Nordic scene, which as a talent pool is better. So, and it's also, they got rid of the LTR. I think they got rid of the LTR rule, which said that if a player plays in a region for 2 seasons, that they become an LTR player. They basically are committing their future to that, which was actually a really good idea, by the way, because at the end of the day, I think having, as we've seen with football and many other sports, trying to say that you should only you should only have 3 or 2 English or British players is ridiculous. The only way that you improve the talent pool that you have is by increasing the quality. We've seen that with the results that we've had. When Arsenal were kind of the first proprietors to bring in, having they were the first team to have an all foreign team. Look at where our England team is now. It's grown. Why? Because they're playing against the best players in the world. The quality has improved. I've gone on a bit of a rant, but essentially, for how it's rigged is that you have to go instead of being promoted or relegated, you have to, or just the bottom teams from UKLC just go into the two bottom teams just go into UKEL, or the top UKEL teams go into UKLC. Actually makes it worth like fighting for those spots because you will be promoted. Whereas then, even if you get to that point, you're going to then face a team that's actually just been receiving a bunch of incentive programs for ages, and their team is probably paid better. So and also, the promotion relegation system, they can also have an academy system, which, but no, the academy system, if they go into promotion relegation, get dropped. Oh yeah, sure. Like the team, the org isn't still talking to them behind closed doors. I mean, I don't even think, I don't even think, could Riot or even Dreamhack stop some sort of clause in a contract to say, oh, if you get into the UKLC becomes our spot, or like you become our players. I don't know, but like it's just such a rigged system, and I mean, even with the fact that Dreamhack introduced like the academy systems for NLC, I was just like, I said to them in the meeting when I kind of had a rant about them by not letting us in the NLC, you will regret that decision, and I think they have.
I think actually was. I think some people may take this a little bit of a different way, because I think the counter argument to that would be that teams have been promoted and relegated from the NLC, but also I would say that to get to that point is the problem. It's not the actual like the teams which have been selected, which then are like Galaxy Race, for example, who have then got promoted. It's actually the process of winning your league and then going through this other tournament to then get to that point, to then get to the chance to then get promoted and then possibly not get promoted. It's like that's a lot to go through just for one NLC spot. And I think what a lot of people kind of don't realize as well is also from like a financial standpoint, with a lot of these kind of organizations, I'm guessing it is a flat month rate and stuff like that. So to then basically then be paying a little bit extra to then go into Tellier Masters, there might be rewards, but then to fail in Tellier Masters could also cost quite a bit as well if you've not just got like a year contract.
I mean, at the end of the day, like it's just like the Premier League, right? If you get into the Premier League, you get really good incentives. You get really good incentives. Just like the NLC, like you get really good incentives. However, like if the Premier League had like where the two bottom spots and the two top spots from the championship went off against each other, would you actually say that the bottom two teams would actually be relegated? No, they've just used all the money that they.
I also don't think you would see the amount of funding in the championship as well, because then you've that you've got to actually beat someone from that league who's been getting £100 million, £300 million.
The problem with the NLC though is that the fact that it's part of two different regions. There's two feeder tournaments. So how do you decide like who goes where? I mean, do you say that the two bottom teams from NLC get relegated, and then one team gets promoted from the UKLC, and one team gets promoted from I can't remember what the Nordic
league
like 4
different ones, isn't there? So
it's like 4 Tellier.
So it's such a bloody mess. But again, with the UK, like you could try out that system just with the UKEL and UKLC. Like if Enclave came last and we were relegated into the UKEL, we deserve it. That's on like that's mismanagement for us. We haven't done enough here. We haven't done enough. At the end of the day, like you would have got teams like Vaperio, who have gone, leagues and have just been working so hard to get into the UKLC. You would see them there, but instead, the only way they get through is because another team drops out, or whatever the scenario was. It gatekeeps teams, and at the end of the day, that whole academy crap was just so mind-boggling to me. Because at the end of the day, like the argument previously for why people had academies was because there wasn't good enough organizations around. You can't say that anymore. You just can't. That there are plenty of good organizations I mean, look at Lucent Esports, look at Viperio. Demise are no longer in the UKLC, which when they're like a massive brand, they're a massive brand, and they should, I would love to have them back into the scene. So there are good enough orgs to be in the UKLC now to cut out this, academy crap and the stuff where like, we're trying to develop players. So it's like, why are you developing players? Why academies even in this league?
I would say though, I think it is fair, and I do agree with you. I'm not like the biggest fan of the academy system, but to provide like an argument towards that, I would also look at Resolve Academy, and I would look at they brought their support up. after like spending a bit of time with him, and he's done wonders for their NLC roster. So
Yeah,
there
but
is
they're
like the
they're an
counter
out
argument
that's
that
an
that did
outliner
work.
that doesn't prove the rule. Like it's that happens, but overall that's not it just
Yeah.
doesn't happen. I mean, you could even look at like XL and say like the fact that they brought in two of their academy players into it. It's like yes, that's happened into the LEC roster, and it's like yes, that's happened, but at the end of the day, like it doesn't prove the rule or doesn't prove it to be true. I think if you want to do academies, you just create a separate league. Just create a separate league. You don't have to have academies in UKLC. Again, it blocks people getting or blocks orgs getting up and secures the positions of those who are above. It's just the straight truth.
We wouldn't have UK orgs that way. If we they'd all be Nordics. No, I'm joking.
If that's how it is, that's how it is. Like that's just how but the thing is, right, is that at the end of the day, you could get someone who at least goes into the UKEL and says, if I actually put in the time and dedication here, there's a chance for me to get to the top, and there's actually I can see it as well. But actually, in order to get to the top right now, I have to go for a promotion and relegation. Even if I win the UKEL, I have to go for a promotion and relegation against teams that have got better funding than me. And then even if I get into that league, I then have to go all the way for another promotion and relegation team against another region which actually has better pool than me. And I'm handicapped by the fact that I have to use 2 talent from my team, which doesn't traditionally have the best talent. It's like, come on.
I think that it just like a simpler fix, maybe not like an ideal fix, but a simpler fix would just be if you're bottom of the UKLC in your 2 groups, you're relegated, and just the 2 top teams in Telemasters go through instantly. So at least it gives you because I understand why they have to do Telemasters, because there's a lot of different leagues.
Yeah, and I understand that as well.
So I can see that actually, if it is just you get relegated, obviously I do agree. I think the incentive is to keep these teams in to build brands. I do understand that. I understand the pros and cons with that, but it says like competitive fairness. Yeah, probably the better way would be if you're relegated and you're bottom, you deserve it, and then the top 2 teams in Telemasters go automatically through. Provides that just that little bit provides a lot more incentive, I think, for the teams competing in the UKLC and all the Telia leagues.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't see why they couldn't do it for UKLC and UKEL. Like, there's no issue there, and I hope they do, because as we've seen already, academies have just created so many issues.
I find it weird actually as well with when people say about like having the same teams in the league all the time to sort of build the storylines, but like as a football fan, I always think that's half the entertainment each year is the relegation scrap at the bottom as well, and you get like the last day scenarios where you're trying to watch every match at the same time to see who's scored now and what the positions are. So I don't know. I feel like
if it's Granite surprise me every single season.
Exactly. Imagine.
I'm like, how is this team staying up? I love it. You get that all the time.
If you're a UKLC team and you get into relegation and promotion, you're not worried. Like, and it has happened where people lose it, demise, for example. But like, if we got into that, I just wouldn't be worried. And then if it happened, I'd be like, oh crap, like it happened. But I just wouldn't be worried. But if we come bottom, it's like, okay, we just need to survive promotion and relegation. We could just bring in a few players. Like I know enough good players that I could just try to bring them onto the roster and prove it and just mechanically outdo the teams in the UKEL who haven't got as good funding as me and deep pockets. So it's just I don't know why, but we'll have to see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Maybe to move things on to maybe a slightly more positive note then. Does the stuff we mentioned it briefly earlier about the LFL obviously kind of like blowing up, but mainly around K Corp? Does that kind of give you any sort of like inspiration at least to think that even looking aside from like actual on the Rift success kind of thing, just even the fact of like branding and stuff, that there is the reach there at an ERL level at least to get like a proper big viewer base?
Yeah, I think it's all about having. So like you look at different orgs and you can kind of see what they're going for. Like let's say G2 are a meme org, meme as hell, but they do that because that's their kind of brand image. But I wouldn't say that that's the same as you wouldn't say that about Schalke. Like Schalke are on
Or even Fnatic. Fnatic's like known as like quite a premier, serious organization.
Exactly, and even if you look at XL, like they have the whole kind of, I would say, mantra of like healthy eating, wellness, fitness and wellness, and all that being like the best in best in the UK, and all that jazz. Like they have an idea, and I think for Enclave, like the we do obviously want to continue supporting players, but I think for a while, like, I would want to have Enclave serve some purpose. Like, what are we doing in the world to really, to really do better? Like, how are we making the UK scene a better place? Like, not just on the Rift, but like outside of it. And I've been kind of thinking about this for a while. And an idea that really does kind of motivate me is trying to, I would say, do more for charity, do more to raise awareness of specific causes. So, for example, one of the things I see a lot is, and this is a really contentious subject, so I'm going to have to be very, very careful about what I say, because people in the past have said to me, that's a whole other deal. Essentially, like, one of the things that I find is that, like, a lot of organizations or a lot of people I've seen in the industry, like, mental health, men's mental health, and what I would call things that would affect men the most, like, for example, prostate cancer, and stuff like that. I really do want to work on helping those sorts of causes, because I think it's just something that doesn't really get talked about. And I don't see a lot of the times, like, people bringing it up, whereas, like, there's always massive pushes for when it's Pride Month and stuff like that, and that's fantastic, and the company I work for does a fantastic job also pushing that, and I'm really, really happy that we're trying to help people feel more safer within our community. But for me personally, like, it's just sad to see, like, my friends who are going through these sorts of situations, that mental health crisis, and they just don't get the same sort of support. From my perception, maybe I'm wrong, but at the end of the day, I'm even scared of saying men's issues, because I've been told by other men within the industry that, oh, men don't have issues. And I'm like, well, prostate cancer is an issue that men face. Overwhelmingly, men kill themselves. Like, the majority of people who commit suicide are men. Like, so this is an issue that particularly hurts men. And why are we so scared of saying that? It's because, yeah, I mean, that's a whole other issue.
I think as well is,
Yeah.
like, I do agree, but I do also have to say that there have been, like, a couple more charitable efforts which I have recently seen. Like, I think London United, I think they did like a charity kind of show match. I think that was for I think I might be wrong, but I think it was Great Ormond Street Hospital. And then I believe that Resolve and Barrage, their jerseys, I think it went to Special Effect.
Jeff Woods.
I think there are at least starting to be things like that, but what I'm seeing though is, and it is quite good to kind of see some of these, like, up and coming kind of organizations as well, like, like London and Resolve just kind of mentioned there. You're also pushing that as well, and not just pushing a be successful.
Yeah,
you're actually doing initiatives which are quite good.
Like London United as well, like, not the London Esports, London United.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen what they've done. They're increasingly trying to get kids in London off, I guess off the streets is the correct term, I don't know, and and playing video games and connecting with each other, and trying to provide, places for people of all different sorts of backgrounds to meet, which is a fantastic thing to get to do. And I think that for me, that does become, like, for a massive driving force for me. Like, what do I want to do with Enclave? Like, what good do I think that Enclave can achieve in our little corner of the world? And I think that's, for me, it's that, like, because again, I've had friends who have dealt with mental health issues and just not seen them get the support that they need because they're men. straight up. That's just the true honesty of it. And I want to, prostate cancer, I think, is another thing that a lot of men don't talk about. And I've never talked about it with my friends. Have you guys? And it's something that, you even laugh there, because it's so embarrassing. No one wants to go and have that procedure done. I'm 25 now, though. I'm gonna have to get it done. And you know what? I don't want that to happen. But at the end of the day, do I want to get cancer? No. And I think it's just these sorts of issues, just have a special place in my heart, and that's something I would want to definitely help try and just kind of create a better place, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think it's probably a more positive note to maybe wrap up on for today. Thanks for coming on then, Phil. I feel like look, we've had a few people on this the last couple of months actually that are people that have been around for ages, and it kind of feels like someone we should have had on ages ago. So it's good to have you on.
We very much had trips down memory lane, which has always been great.
I mean, I could talk about it for ages, as you could probably tell. But and there's more nuggets in my head somewhere that I can touch upon. But no, it's really fun talking to you about it, and I definitely want to do more of these to kind of talk about the stuff that's happening in the UK scene. I also want to have a podcast where I get to talk about my work with EHE as well, because that's been really exciting. But definitely for another time.
Yeah, sounds good. Before we do wrap up, then we can have a little look at the rest of the playoff fixtures for the UKEL, obviously where we're kindly hosted. So yeah, we had a bit of action over the weekend, and we can see the nice graphic there now with the upcoming games. So I believe next matches are tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. X7 against Munster in the lower bracket there. The winners then facing London United on Saturday at noon. The winners from that match then go into another best of 3 straight after against August for a chance in the grand final on Sunday. So of course you can check all that out here at the UKEL. You can of course
please sponsor August, because in fact, don't sponsor August, because it'd be funny if August does end up winning this. I'm looking forward to it. I'm on the Munster hype train. So let's just get them. Let's get them up. The fact that they clinched it right at the end, and now they're wow. I mean, they've got a shot. I wouldn't say that they've got a winner's bet, but they've got a shot.
They've got the momentum going from now. So we'll see. But yeah, like I said, you can of course follow the UKEL to see the action, and you can follow to see us live as well, usually on Sundays. Obviously not this Sunday coming up, because that's the grand final. But yeah, some point after that probably. Otherwise,
we're gonna have a mega rundown, I think, of everything.
Yeah, we need one. Team of the split at some point we've got to do as well for the NLC, seeing as they don't do one themselves. So at some point I'm sure we'll do that as well. But yeah, otherwise if you're watching later on
I'm already searching who's got the most followers on each team, so I can get that.
In case just looking for retweets, Tom. You'll never forget the Kasing retweet.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's not in the NLC this year though, just in case.
I can still put him in though, kinda.
Try tag him anyway. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, like I said, if you're watching later on Spotify, YouTube, any of those, of course, follow there too. And you can follow us all directly. Our Twitter's on the screen as well. And yeah, that'll pretty much do it. Thanks for listening.